listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Radio Show, only on Financial News and Talk. Now live in studio, your host, local and national real estate expert and consumer advocate, Ron Siegel.
And hello again. Welcome to Ron Siegel Radio. This is the show with no real boundaries. As we discuss current events, financial markets, politics, sports, even poking fun at the rest of the media, this is the show that connects the dots of confusion delivered by conflicting media reports. We connect the dots so you know the actions you can take, how your family or business can benefit from current events. Most of all, thank you for joining me. Before we get into our intriguing content today, please join me in welcoming our featured guest, Lynda Eisenmann. Holy cow, I'm going crazy here.
That's
Lynda Eisenmann,
okay.
Preferred Home Brokers, welcome.
That's okay. Thank you, Ron. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you with us. Now that I've actually got your name right.
That's okay. That's all right.
Before we get again, just to remind you, if you ever have any home or finance related questions, I am the consumer advocate looking out for you, and you can reach out to me directly, 800-306-1990. 800-306-1990 or ronsiegelradio.com. Just remember, that's the number you call anytime for assistance. When you call that number, it comes directly to me first. There are no operators standing by. I am it.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
While I do have a great team when it comes to developing a financing plan or plan to save you money, I personally work with you. Even if you don't have any needs today, save this number in your phone for future reference, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Happy Valentine's Day it is today. So what else are we celebrating besides, what else can you celebrate besides Valentine's Day? I don't know about this one. This one would certainly not be one for me. National Ferris Wheel Day. Probably would not be good for somebody who has an aversion to heights. That might pose a little bit of a problem, maybe a lot of a problem, but that would just be the issue there. And having beaten anorexia, I will definitely go with National Cream-Filled Chocolates Day. I can go with that one. Of course, I can go with chocolate almost any day, so it doesn't matter to me. It's been a roller coaster on the markets this morning. Have you watched them at all? Holy cow, they were up in the very, very early hours of the morning. That would be probably before the sun rose, before most of us in California were up. Watching the markets around 4:30 this morning, they were doing significantly better on the futures markets. Then all of a sudden we got some economic data comes out. The Dow Jones Industrial Average goes from positive to negative, down 300 points in the futures. The market opened up down today. Then we were up in the positive territory by over 100 points. And now we're sitting basically flat. So the market, the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.25 points. So you're down 281 right now. So that's basically saying nothing. Oil up 59 cents, up 25 cents per barrel as we speak right now. So nothing happening there. Let's look at the bond market. What's going on in the bonds? Well, all I can say is, yeah, they're not pretty if you're looking at the mortgage world. So we are looking at the U.S. 10-year Treasury up 5 basis points, 2.89. Doesn't say a whole lot, but now we look at the 30-year Fannie Mae fixed rate bond. Now, remember, the key word there is I said bond. When I say bond, that's telling you that we're not talking about yield. We're talking about the bond itself, down 39 basis points. Ow! Repeating ourselves. That means mortgage rates are up once again this morning. So not a pleasant day in the market, but you know something, if you're not locking in right now, it doesn't matter to you, and we'll talk about locking in and what my thoughts are on locking in. If you have to do it, there's one issue. If you don't have to do it, there's a whole nother issue, so we'll chat about that. Let's look at the news of the day as well. Well, obviously, we love watching our Olympians winning gold medals. That's a nice one. What's his name? Sean Bodie winning again. He didn't win last time, I guess 4 years ago, but now he's got another gold medal. And again, being one who does not like heights, I give him credit for going and doing that downhill stuff, and it's crazy. You know something? If there's nothing wrong with the earth, stay there. just my personal opinion. Moving and watching what's going on in Washington, D.C., if we have to.
I got a bad feeling about this.
And why do we do that? It's because it has such a bearing on the market. If you think about it, December 18th, does that date mean anything to you? Well, that was basically the date of the vote of the tax plan. That is when we started seeing all the volatility come back into the stock market. Up until then, for the last, 8, 9 years, most people just thought the stock market only went up. Well, now we see that the stock market can go up, it can go down, it can go sideways, it can have volatility. And that's also why we're seeing the bond market doing what it's doing. And as I shared with you, I think it was Monday, those of you that didn't listen to the broadcast, you may have missed it. We're going to see this volatility until we get some insight from the Federal Reserve. What insight are we looking for from the Federal Reserve? Well, I believe it was under the Volcker years that we had 11 federal funds rate increases in a single year. This year the projections are the equivalent of 15 increases. Now, you might look at it and say, Ron, how did you come up with 15 increases? Well, basically, the Federal Reserve says the inclination, the projections are, they're going to raise rates 3 times. But now that we are unwinding quantitative easing, we are actually going to quantitative tightening. As the Federal Reserve continues to allow the bonds that are maturing, when people buy a new house, when they repay their loan, when they refinance and pay off that loan. Well, as they continue doing that, and the Federal Reserve does not rebuy those mortgage bonds or the 10-year treasuries that get redeemed and do not get rebought, and why wouldn't somebody redeem their treasury if they see the price of the bond going down, the yield going up, but the bond price is continuing to drop? But when the Federal Reserve does not go out there and continue buying those, the demand for the bonds continues to diminish because the Federal Reserve was buying so much. Well, that's the same thing as having a Federal Reserve tightening. Think about that. So it is an issue that very few people are talking about that concept, but until we have the Federal Reserve come out and say, yeah, that really is the way it's working, you might see this free-for-all on the bond market. Just a thought for you. What other news is out there? Well, a federal judge defied President Trump on his DACA program. Just another one of those issues. Very fascinating that President Obama can issue an executive order not to enforce the law. When President Trump rescinds it, the judge says you don't have the right. Gotta wonder about that one. Hopes for a bipartisan agreement on immigration and DACA fading rapidly. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wanted to hold a preliminary vote dealing with sanctuary cities yesterday. Democrats blocked the vote because it did not deal directly with DACA, the immigration debate, which begins, or actually continues, going 3 days now. They've been talking about it. What have they done? Well, probably the same thing they generally do in the Senate. Absolutely nothing. Unbelievable right there. Waiting still. This is another fascinating story if you're a political junkie like I am, or if you are a patriot and want to see what's really going on in Washington, D.C. Do you remember the whole memo gate issue when the Republicans came out with their memo on what was going on in FISA and the FISA warrants? And the lunatic Adam Schiff came out and said, none of the Democrats wanted to, on the committee, none of the committee members, they all voted against transparency. They all voted against the idea of releasing the Republicans' version of the memo. The majority, there was only a handful of Democrats in the entire House of Representatives that took the time to go into the secure room and read those 4 pages. I know it's very difficult to read those 4 pages, but they wouldn't go read them. Goes to the president, he sends it through the process. 90 seconds. And holy cow, what do we got going on there? They go through that whole process, and we got a little technical difficulties, boys. We'll get this straightened out. So they go through this whole process, and we are watching there, and they decide that they're going to change their ways there. They're going to release that memo. Well, the Democrats wanted their memo released, but they put in a bunch of landmines. President sends it back, and they say, take out the landmines, and we're going to get it, we'll release it. Well, the Democrats haven't sent that back to the president yet. I wonder why. We'll have to ask about that one as well. We're going to get these technical difficulties taken care of while we're at break. You are listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate current events and the financial markets. When we come back, we've got a lot to cover today. Which comes first, marriage or mortgage? It's Valentine's Day. We got to talk about it. Ways to benefit from rising interest rates and what you need to know about a mortgage or a residential purchase offer. All that and more. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Connect with us, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio. On Twitter, @Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few
10 seconds.
Are you living in the home of your dreams or simply where you think you can afford? If the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you doing about it? Text ATP to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey and the area trusted professionals of Ron Siegel Radio will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is text ATP to 79564.
Did you know that banks and credit bureaus are rewarded financially if you have bad credit? And the worse your credit score is, the more money they can make off of you? How does that make you feel, knowing that banks are getting rich off of your hard-earned money? How does it make you feel, knowing that if a bank or a credit bureau makes a mistake on your credit report, they benefit from it and it hurts you? The Fair Credit Report Act of 1971 requires banks and credit bureaus to report only accurate information, and nearly 100% of all credit reports are inaccurate. If you're sick and tired of being broke and tired of being robbed by the banks, you owe it to yourself and to your family to call Rondi. Rondi is a FICO-certified credit professional and has helped thousands of people just like you get out of debt and establish great credit. Rondi's number is 855-608-1990. Again, that's 855-608-1990. Or visit creditsanitizer.com. Again, that website is creditsanitizer.com.
Are you a veteran, own a home, and need money? The Siegel Lending Team is here to help veterans refinance and get the money they need. The VA 100 lets you borrow up to 100% of your home's value, refinance your mortgages, consolidate credit cards, and lower your payments by an average of $700 a month. And the Siegel Lending Team knows that character means more than a credit score. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Rate subject to change without notice. Licensed by the California Department of Corporations, NMLS 21037 and DRE number 018694552.
Are you a veteran, police officer, firefighter, doctor, nurse, or teacher? If so, you qualify as one of Ron Siegel's VIP heroes, and we have rewards up to $5,000 or $10,000 when you buy, sell, or refinance a home with one of the Ron Siegel radio partners. As one of the heroes, real estate agents will rebate part of their commission, lending partners will give a credit at closing, the title company has special published rates, and many other service providers have incentives too. All you need to do is call Ron Siegel Radio at 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit VIPHeroProgram.com. Just think about what you will do with all the rebates and incentives from the partners of Ron Siegel Radio. Just call us at 800-306-1990.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
So
Goodbye.
we can show you our appreciation for your service.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Still got a little bit of technical difficulties going on, so you might hear some oddities in the background, but we will continue with our broadcast, and hopefully we won't have too much interference
Your show will
from
go live in 5
our
seconds.
friends here.
4,
But here's
3,
the here is the
2,
issue.
1.
Well, let's see what's going on here now.
Blog Talk
we might have another issue coming on, guys.
Are you a veteran, police
Okay,
officer,
so we
firefighter,
have a little bit of a
doctor,
problem
nurse,
here with
or
our
teacher?
startup.
If so,
Let's see
you
if we can get-
qualify as one of Ron's.
There we go. I think we've got it resolved again. But the Mortgage Minute brought to you by our friends over at Gold Star Mortgage. When you're ready for that next mortgage, Gold Star has the programs, the products for you. All you need to do is give us a call, 800-306-1990. We will get that information off to you right away. The Mortgage Minute, again, we are looking at what's happening in the marketplace. Stocks and mortgages both sharply lower than they're higher. They keep jumping around. It makes it a lot of fun to try and figure out which way we are going. But that's just the way it is right now. The CPI report is the issue. It was a hotter than expected CPI report. When we talk about hotter than expected, that's basically telling us that we got a little inflation to worry about. When we're worrying about inflation, that's when we talk about the Federal Reserve getting more active. That's the consumer, on the consumer level is where we're seeing that inflation. Showed that the headline inflation rose 0.5% in the month of January, hotter than the 0.3% expected. The core rate, which strips out food and energy, the things that everybody really needs, rose 0.3%, which is also more than the consensus. The rise in month-over-month inflation surprised both the stock and the bond market, sending them both lower earlier in the session. As I reported to you in the last segment, the market is extremely volatile. So now we're back up just ever so slightly. You got to keep watching that if you are so inclined. Now here's the issue. Is you have to always just wonder how does this affect you? And I've talked about this generally on the extreme volatility days. That's when we really get involved in talking about the markets, when we're really, really volatile. I've been down 300 today. We were up 100, 400 point swing. If nothing has changed with your family, don't worry about the markets. If you need your money out of the market in the next 2 years, you shouldn't be in the stock market in the first place. You should be much safer. So those are just issues. Lisa, you are in serious trouble. There are voices in my head. They can be heard. Okay, well, I get it. There's these two earplugs here, and they're probably catching something going in the air between the two of them. But get back to the issue. Our whole issue here is we want to get back to the point that don't worry about volatility unless you really need your money. If you really need your money, get it out of the stock market. Then you won't worry about the volatility, and you will be able to sleep much better. That's the Mortgage Minute, again, brought to you by our friends at Gold Star Mortgage, the only ones I know about that have the Fast Pass loan approval, and it virtually ensures that your offer will be moved to the top of the list. And speaking of the list of offers, we're going to chat this morning. Lynda Eisenmann is with us. Welcome again.
Thank you, Ron. Good to be here.
So in this volatility, obviously you've seen a little bit of market volatility in your career.
I have.
And you've seen some times where there's been low inventory, although this is about as low as we've ever had.
It is. It is about as low as I've seen, and I've tracked it over the years.
Right, so no inventory. People they still have their same needs. And I don't know if you caught this one. I shared a couple of weeks ago, I shared this concept, and it was in the last 10 years, we've gone from 110 million households in the U.S. to 120 million households in the U.S. over the last 10-year period. In that same time period, we had 2 million of those 10 million, 2 million of those homeowners, of those new households, bought their home. 8 million obviously rented homes. Yet we just came out with a home ownership rate of 64.2%. So in my feeble mind, that means we should have had 6.4 million new homeowners. It means we got a lot of pent-up demand.
We do.
Right? So there's a lot of people. We
do.
But no one wants to sell.
Well, there's several reasons for that.
Okay.
And one of them is boomers, aging boomers, and I'm one of those. We're staying in our homes longer, and we're staying in our homes longer for a variety of reasons. Not just because of home pricing, taxes, property taxes, for example. So there are reasons people are staying put. And a lot of boomers, aging boomers in particular, are helping their adult children, so to speak, buy homes and get into homes. So we just don't have nearly the amount of inventory. And even though we see construction going on, it's not enough to keep up with the demand, especially in the state of California.
Well, and the other issue I think that's there is the builders want to build what makes sense for them and their bottom line.
Well, they've got to.
Right?
It is about the bottom line.
Yeah, but they're not building what the boomers really want. I mean, the boomers don't want to buy a new luxury home. They don't need that 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 foot house.
They don't want 2 stories.
And they don't want 2 stories.
I mean, how many single-story homes do you see going up particularly in Orange County, where we're located, or a lot of different areas of Southern California in general?
At least, and when they do go up, generally you see them go on the market, and within hours it goes pending.
You're right.
Right? So it's
high demand.
It's high demand.
High demand.
And so, as a seller, if we do have we get these multiple offers coming in. We've kind of talked about the idea that there's a big market out there for somebody to list and sell. When a seller gets the offer, what are the things that they really need to focus on in that offer to try? Especially if I'll give you a perfect example, Lynda. My mom's got a couple of condos she's selling, and they're in San Diego County, and one of the issues there is you get multiple offers, and she sends them over to me. What should I be looking at? And I've full transparency. I've got a real estate license. I don't use it. I'm not qualified to do a real estate transaction, even though I've got a license. And I'd say most people aren't qualified just because they have a license. That doesn't qualify you.
You're right. It means they can pass the test.
It means you can pass the
You
test.
and I've talked about that before.
Right. So what should I be looking at when I get this contract in?
Well, there are so many things that are included in a California purchase agreement. First of all, it's a 10-page contract.
Okay.
10 pages in the state of California.
And that's before addendums and
absolutely.
disclosures and all that other stuff.
That's the bare bones contract itself, the real estate purchase agreement. There are so many things to consider on that offer. Price is just one of the elements, and it kind of goes hand in hand with a home buyer. If I'm working with a buyer and knowing the seller's situation, we also want to structure that buyer's offer as strong as we can to hopefully have it be accepted as written. And I will tell you, it's not that often that offers today are accepted as written, and a lot of it has to do with all of these other things that are in a contract. There's a lot of different things to consider when an offer comes in, and I realize we're on the radio, and you and I are about the only ones that can see this right now.
We got a whole group of people there.
All right. Well, I brought a 10-page contract.
Nice.
With me because this is like the whole basis. It's the fundamental portion of your entire contract or your entire buying or selling situation. And when I work with a seller, when I meet with a seller one of the first times, somebody who's considering selling their home, one of the things I do is bring out this purchase agreement. And I explain the fact that when an offer comes in, this is what you're going to ask to be signing at the time, whether it's as it's written or a counter offer. This is the basis, the foundation.
So you're starting off very early on educating the seller.
Absolutely. And the reason for that is normally most sellers look at what's the purchase price.
Okay.
What would I be selling the home for based on the way this contract is written? And what's the escrow period? How soon do I get the funds? How soon do I need to move out? Those sort of things.
Okay.
But when I'm working with a home seller, I take out my yellow highlighter and I go through all of the things that I'm looking for as their representative, as their broker, when an offer comes in. And the price is just one of the important elements, obviously. But there's so many other things to consider in the offer. I'm looking at, first of all, how much of a deposit does that buyer have? So is the buyer coming in with a minimal deposit, or are they coming in with at least 2 to 3% of the purchase price? I'm also looking at the finance terms. I want to know how much that buyer is putting down after their initial deposit. How much is the down payment?
Why is that important?
Well, it's important for a lot of reasons. It's important because the stronger the down payment, usually, not always, but normally, the more solid the transaction. It shows a lender, you're the lender, it shows a lender that the buyer has a very large down payment. Therefore, it can be easier to qualify for a loan. And it may also impact an appraisal. It may or may not. And quite frankly, we haven't had any big appraisal issues now for some time because because I think appraisers are keeping up with the market in general.
Right. We talked about that a little bit on the broadcast yesterday.
We did. And you were right on with your comments about that, because that's what we've been experiencing.
You're seeing that
also
in the marketplace also.
Absolutely.
Great, okay.
So getting back to what the seller's looking for is the price and how long is our escrow period. I'm looking for the amount of the deposit. I'm looking for how much of a down payment the buyer is coming in with. I'm looking for additional financing terms. That's also on the bottom of page 1, whether or not there's any additional financing that's going to be needed. And one of the things on page 2 I'm looking for, and I highlight, is the verification of down payment. We want to see that the buyers actually have those funds set aside for the down payment and the necessary closing costs, and potentially any reserves if that's going to be required for the buyer's new loan. So those are just the very preliminary things we're looking at.
Now, before we go too much further, because
Yes.
we're going to go to a break here real quick.
Okay.
One of the issues that I really want to get to here, and we're going to go through the rest of this when we come back, but one of the big issues that Lynda has shared with us already this morning is education. Now, when we're talking about education, one of the reason I bring that up is I'm hearing a lot of commercials right now that will do your transaction for 1% or 0.5%, or they'll throw a brick at you or something like that. I don't even know what all that stuff means. But my point here is, if you don't know this contract, I mean, this can be overwhelming stuff. If you're 50, 60, 70 years old, you haven't bought a house in the last 20, 30 years, the contract just changed in the last, 6 months ago?
Oh, actually a little longer.
Okay, so but it's not that old. It was in the last 20. It's more frequent than the last 20 years.
It changes on a regular basis. I mean, it happens quite often.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so it's constantly changing, and you need to be educated. A lot of these services that are online, what they're talking about is they'll do a transaction, and I love the one of them that says that it doesn't need to be on the MLS because people go to the internet. Well, where do you think the internet gets their information? It's from the MLS. So they're already, from the commercial, they're already misleading you. That's one of the things I want to bring out, and that's why I love it when Lynda comes in and helps us educate, because we're getting information that you're just not going to get if you're going to one of these dumb online things that want to take your biggest investment of your life, your family's castle, and reduce it to pardon my expression, but you want to go to the Walmart of real estate? Just a thought there. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. When we come back, more on the real estate contract. We're also going to talk about which comes first, marriage or mortgage, and 15 ways to benefit from rising interest rates. All that and more. You can reach me anytime. Off-air number, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. Connect with us, facebook.com/Ron Siegel Radio, on Twitter @Ron Siegel. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Siegel Lending Team offers you buying power. Let's say you can afford a monthly mortgage payment, including principal and interest, of around $1,900. With today's rate on a 30-year fixed mortgage of 3.75%, APR 3.85%, that payment could support a $416,000 mortgage. But if you wait and rates tick up to around 6.5%, which is roughly the average home mortgage rate over the past 30 years, that same $1,900 mortgage payment, including principal and interest, may only be able to support a $314,000 mortgage. That's over $100,000 worth of home you're missing out on by waiting. That's buying power. All you need to do to get started is reach out to the Siegel Lending Team at 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Payment example excludes taxes and insurance. Call us for full details. 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990. Or SiegelLendingTeam.com. Equal housing lender. Licensed under NMLS number 217037.
Are you purchasing or own a luxury home? If you're like so many others, your home is your largest asset and the mortgage is your largest debt. The Siegel Lending Team has some amazing financing opportunities right now. Jumbo loans up to $2 million, 30-year rates below 4%, 15-year rates near 3.5%, and if you can believe it, 7-year interest-only hybrids in low 3s. The Siegel Lending Team has all the options for your jumbo or second home loan requirements. take advantage of them while you can. To learn more about all the other financing products available from the Siegel Lending Team, call 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Again, call 1-800-306-1990. Rates subject to change without notice. Licensed by NMLS ID 217037 and 145502. Equal housing lender.
Homeowners that are 62 and older are about to find out a great way to live a better retirement. It's called a reverse mortgage, and SLT can help you learn more. Call the Siegel Lending Team at 800-306-1990 right now to receive your free booklet with no obligation. It answers questions like how a reverse mortgage works, how much you qualify for, the ways to receive your money, and more. When you call the experts at Siegel Lending Team today, you'll learn the benefits of a government-insured reverse mortgage, how it will eliminate your monthly mortgage payments, and give you tax-free cash from the equity in your home. Here's the best part. You still own your home. Now is the best time to take control of your retirement. Call 800-306-1990. That's 800-306-1990 to get your free brochure. Call today or visit our website at SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Or simply call 800-306-1990.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. Real-time real estate segment today being brought to you by the area trusted real estate professionals of Ron Siegel Radio. Text Toolkit to 79564. Toolkit to 79564. Get your ultimate home finance toolkit right from our area trusted professionals. It's going to have the mortgage calculators in there, affordability worksheets are in there, and access to real-time access to getting real-time interest rates. All of that in the toolkit. Text Toolkit, no space, to 79564. Go ahead and get that right now. Which comes first, marriage or mortgage? According to the National Association of Realtors, most recent profile of home buyers and sellers. Married couples once again dominated the first-time home buyer statistics in 2017 at 57% of all buyers. It is no surprise that having two incomes to save for down payments and contribute to monthly housing costs make buying a home more attainable. But many couples are also deciding to buy a home before spending what would be a down payment on a wedding, as unmarried couples made up 16% of all first-time buyers last year. If you're single, don't fret. Single women made up 18% of first-time buyers in 2017. Obviously significantly smarter than the men, because single men were only 7% of the buyers. Recent report pointed to a sense of responsibility and commitment that drives many single women to want their own homes rather than rent someone else's. Posted a chart earlier today of the breakdown of all of the first-time buyers. Bottom line, you may not be that much different than those who have already purchased their first homes. Let's chat about it. Let's see if we can get you into your home instead of paying somebody else's mortgage. That's the real-time real estate segment, again, brought to you by the area trusted real estate professionals of Ron Siegel Radio. Text Toolkit to 79564. Good morning, Hugh, Tom, Brandy, Marie, Eileen, good to see you there. Lisa, I don't know about just trouble there. Cindy, good to see you as well. James, there's a whole bunch more. Get some more hellos in the next segment. Right now, we're going to get back to our conversation with Lynda Eisenmann. We're reviewing and getting educated on the residential purchase agreement for California. It's to me, it's only common sense. If I was a real estate agent or realtor, I would want to be going out and reviewing this contract with the client well before they get them. You know, right now in the lending side, we send out a closing disclosure 3 days before the close of escrow. And it gives the consumer the opportunity to read the closing numbers, discuss it with the professionals, get all their questions answered. And unfortunately, in real estate, that really doesn't happen in so many times. It's, especially if you're dealing with some of these online services. Here's the contract. What do you want to do? How the heck do you know? Right? I mean, the contract, Lynda, hold that up for 1 second. You got 10 pages of documentation there, right? And it's typed small and it's written by attorneys that most of us can't understand anyway. So the education part, Lynda, I'm so thrilled that that's your process, and I wish more people did it that way.
Well, when it comes down to it, like I said, this is the third time, this is the entire foundation of your contract. And if a seller has this information ahead of time, meaning prior to an offer coming in, and I review it at the listing appointment, that's the time to have better understanding about the contract, because there are so many different things other than the price and other than the length of escrow. And those are things that your realtor should be looking at when an offer comes in.
Now, do I need to really, I know that the legal answer is yes, you have to read the entire thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to understand it because I'm a simple guy and it's written by complex people. So once I've read it and I don't understand it, is my realtor going to be the one that's really going to know, be able to guide me?
They should.
Through that process?
They absolutely should. I think something that is some of the most important information for a home seller is to know that the California Real Estate Purchase Agreement is loaded with contingencies, and those contingencies really are buyer's protections, and those buyer's protections have to do with the buyer's loan information. It has to do with the ability to get a loan. It also has to do with the condition of the property, and the first portion of the contract is when the buyer has time for their due diligence, and their due diligence is very wide-ranging. It means the property inspection, the home inspection, and by the way, when it comes to the home inspection, I really like to have the buyers present during that inspection, because there are things that the inspector will be able to point out to a home buyer or home buyers during the inspection that are easier to understand and easier for that inspector to explain right there on the spot than just waiting for a written report 24 to 48 hours later.
Now, if I'm there for the inspection,
yes.
Or am I going to get shock by what the inspector's coming up with? I mean, that kind of leads me, because there's no licensing for the home inspector.
True.
And the home inspector can come up. I mean, we know that some of them are they want to justify their salary instead of going and saying that their fee, as opposed to look at the wall behind us. There's a light cover missing. Yeah, you might want to call that out, but you don't want to it's not a deal breaker. It shouldn't be a deal breaker.
It's not a deal breaker, and that's one of the reasons that having the buyers present during the inspection, and the inspector will, like I said, normally point those things out, but it's the overall structure you're looking for. You want to know the roof condition, for example. You want to know the plumbing condition. And
those are the biggies.
Oh, absolutely.
Ones that are going to be the five-figure, six-figure expenses if something goes wrong.
Yes, they could be.
Right, I want to know about the roof, I want to know about the plumbing, I want to know about the foundation. Right, I mean, a light cover, if it's broken, yeah.
And those are part of some of the things that are all in the beginning portion of the contract. The buyer's due diligence, what the buyer is hopefully going to be doing during that portion of the escrow period. And getting back to the contract, some of the other things that I'm looking for, and what we went over in the first segment with just those items on the first page. I also want to know whether or not the buyer has to sell another property. Is there a sale contingency? And if there is a contingency, does that mean that property is already sold? Is it already in escrow? Are they just waiting for that buyer's loan to close in order to facilitate this sale? Or it's possible to have more than one contingency. In other words, if you have a high-end home, it's possible you could have 1 or 2, 3 sales right behind it. So those are all things that your agent needs to know, and your agent needs to be able to convey that, communicate that to the home seller, so that the seller can make an informed decision.
And we just went through that with on a property that I was consulting on recently. One of the things that the listing agent of the acquiring property, they wanted to know the address of the contingent property so they could go out and do their due diligence to see, was it priced to sell or was it priced for pie in the sky?
You're right.
So you have to have you have to have an experienced agent that can look outside their own marketplace and see if it makes sense.
And if there is a contingency, that is an addendum to this contract.
Okay.
So, and they should have presented an addendum at the time, and they probably did.
Right.
And it does have the address, it has the escrow period, it actually states whether or not the property is on the market and or is the property in escrow. That's all stated on the contingency addendum.
Okay, and so it's good. That's additional. So when somebody says, "I've got an offer for you for $100 and it's non-contingent," what does that say to me? Does it really say anything other than I've got an offer for $100 or $100,000 or $1 million or whatever the number
Well,
is?
if they're using a California contract, like I said in the beginning, it is full of contingencies that are primarily for the protection of the buyers during the first portion of the contract. And these contingencies need to be signed off as your escrow progresses within the time period specified in your contract. That's another very important reason to have a realtor who is not only familiar with the contract, but has had a lot of experience working through the process with buyers and sellers.
So there's a bunch of time milestones. So basically what you want to do is get a timeline. Once you're looking at the contract, you really want to have a timeline. Okay, I've got day 7, what contingencies are due? Day 10, day 17, day 21, whatever it is. Now, let me ask you this question, because this is, well, actually, I'm going to ask you this one. I'll throw the question to you now.
Okay.
We'll talk about it when we come back. The contract is really written based on the concept of a 30-day escrow. I mean, you can put whatever you want in there, but you've got these contingency periods, 7 days, 17 days, 21 days. Now, if you have a 60-day or a 90-day escrow, should those be modified based on that? And we're going to talk about that one when we come back. You're listening to Ron Siegel Radio, discussing your real estate, current events, and the financial markets. We'll also talk about some ways to benefit from rising interest rates. We've still got a lot to cover, so I might not get to all 15 of those. We might have to share some of them tomorrow. Stay tuned. We'll be back in just a few.
Are you living in the home of your dreams or simply where you think you can afford? Are you earning a safe, secure 10+% return on your investments? Is your credit score over 800? If the answer to any of these questions is no, what are you doing about it? Text ATP to 79564. Complete a 3-minute complimentary survey and the area trusted professionals of Ron Siegel Radio will reach out to you to develop a success strategy for you. Again, all you need to do is text ATP to 79564.
Most businesses struggle to get the online reviews they need to get a competitive edge over their competition. Rex is a brand new technology that uses text messages to direct happy clients to your online review sites, Zillow, Google, Facebook, and Yelp, and unhappy clients to a private survey, so businesses can win more customers. Try Rex today by going to www.meetrex.com.
Are you currently renting a home? Do you like paying someone else's mortgage payment? Why not explore the options to purchase your own home? Can you imagine a 30-year fixed-rate loan below 4.25% APR? This means with $10,500, you can purchase a $295,000 home and have a principal and interest payment of about $1,400 per month. What are you paying in rent? Does your family deserve the opportunity to take advantage of the current market? To learn more about these exciting opportunities, the Siegel Lending Team is standing by to speak with you. Call now, 1-800-306-1990. That's 1-800-306-1990. Or visit SiegelLendingTeam.com. That's SIEGEL LendingTeam.com. Or 1-800-306-1990. Rates subject to change without notice. Licensed by NMLS ID 217037 and 145502. Equal housing lender. Not endorsed or sponsored by any government agency.
Do you have a goal of mortgage-free home ownership? What if your home was valued at $500,000? Are you aware that a free and clear home could be costing you $2,500 every month, $30,000 per year? The mortgage planners at the Siegel Lending Team would like to show you how you can own your home, generate tax-free income, and accumulate family wealth. You simply need to call the Ron Siegel Team at 1-800-306-1990. That is 1-800-306-1990. By sending the team a copy of your most recent mortgage statement, the team will send you you a no-obligation real estate plan. You be the judge if this is right for your family. Again, all you have to do is send the team a copy of your mortgage statement by email to reap@ronsiegelradio.com or call today. Ron Siegel, 1-800-306-1990. That is 1-800-306-1990.
Subject to change and without notice. Licensed by the California DOC and BRENMLS 217037 and 145502 and Cal BRE 01869452 and 1866775.
You're listening to Ron Siegel's Home and Finance Show with local and national expert Ron Siegel. Now, here's Ron.
Welcome back to Ron Siegel Radio. Within every market, there are solutions as well as tremendous opportunities. You just need some trusted guidance. That's my message, and as your consumer advocate, I will be delivering it every day on Ron Siegel Radio or anytime at 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990. The Word on Wealth segment today being brought to you by CreditSanitizer.com. You have a credit report? It is wrong. They all are. What are you doing about it? Credit Sanitizer has these solutions for you. Ways to benefit from rising interest rates. You've heard that the interest rates are going up, and they continually are. Well, the first thing to know is understand the interest rates. You might want to lock in. If you're on the investor side, you might want to be locking in that higher yield if you can. Since it costs more money to carry debt when interest rates are high, now is the time to do whatever you can to reduce your amount of debt. That I've talked to you about this one before as well. The debt consolidation loan. Don't worry about what your interest rate says. I hear this all the time. I just saw this recently. Somebody called me up, and they've got a 3.75% interest rate on their first mortgage, and they're contemplating restructuring their loan. And their interest rate's going to go up to about 4.5 or 4 3/4, something like that. Doesn't matter what the number is. And they're saying, well, I don't want my interest rate to go up. And I said, your interest rate is not going up when you consider what your blended household interest rate is. Blended household interest rate, because that's all that really matters. Put all of your debt into the calculator, figure out what all your debt is, weigh it based on the size of that debt. And when we did that, their blended household interest rate was 8.5. Well, 8.5, now bring that down to 4.5 or 4 3/4. Think that makes sense? Different answer. Buy now if you're thinking about buying a house. Interest rates are going up. Take advantage of where they are right now. Reallocate if you currently have investments in long-term CDs and are able to move them around. Allocating them to shorter-term funds may make more sense. Our friend Todd Halterman can help you with that. If you're a good saver, then rising interest rates are great for you because it also means the return on your savings will be greater. Invest. Look at the right investments. If you can take some money out of a piece of real estate, don't tell the regulators I told you this because they don't like it when we say this. We just looked at an investment for an individual yesterday. It's a 80-year-old lady that's going to take $200,000 out of her house and get about $3,000 a month in income, in cash flow. Think about these things. You got to have good guidance. When you're talking about any of these things, it's not a matter of taking money out of a piece of property to buy a car or a boat or go on vacation. You want to invest them wisely. If you want some introductions to great individuals that can help you with this, give me a call, 800-306-1990. I can tell you these things because I'm not licensed in them. I'm not selling these things. I'm just telling you where to explore to do your own due diligence. That is the Your Credit Matters segment, our Word on Wealth, brought to you by CreditSanitizer.com. Continuing our conversation with Lynda Eisenmann this morning. Preferred Home Brokers is the name of her company. Been doing this. She's got some experience here. So we're going to continue our conversation. Before the break, Lynda, I was asking about the idea, and right now I don't know that you see a whole lot of extended escrow periods just because there's, people want to get their house on the market and get it sold and move on to whatever they're wanting to do with their life.
They do.
So if you have and you look at the contract and, you see 30-day escrow and you've got these dates that are already pre-printed, you can change them, but they're pre-printed. A 7-day appraisal period or a 10-day something else and a 21-day something else. Right, these are all the different contingencies that, as you've mentioned, built into the contract. But now what if we go to a 60 or 90-day escrow? Should we double or triple all those numbers?
If I were a home seller and I'm representing a home seller, I would not suggest that you double any of those, because you want to know as soon as you can that your home is really sold to these buyers, and the buyers are ready to move forward. And they're ready to move forward after they've satisfied their conditions. And their conditions or their contingencies are usually the appraisal, the loan, the property inspection. One other thing I didn't mention is one of the other contingencies that can take a little time is if you're in, for example, those of us who live in Southern California, many of us live in a homeowner association. Not necessarily a condo, but very often we have an association. Sure. And part of the disclosure is information on that association, the health of the association, the rules, the regulations, all of those things that buyers are to approve during the escrow process. The seller normally furnishes those. They normally provide those documents to the buyer based on our California contract. Sometimes it takes a while to get those. Sellers don't normally have those on hand, and if they do, they may or may not be the most recent, for example. And from the time that those items are ordered, it could be another 7 to 10 days. You could be in your contingency period. But if you get those documents at the last minute, the buyer technically has another 5 days in which to approve or disapprove those.
So you want to make sure that you're ordering those. If the seller is going to pay for them anyway, why can't they just order them when they decide to list the property?
They can. They can.
So that way it's ready to hand over.
And usually what you would do is, if you're the listing agent, you probably have an idea where that what escrow company you're going to be using. So you would have the escrow company go ahead and order those in advance. One of the reasons they're not ordered in advance very often is because the seller has to pay for them. That means the seller has to write a check. And I'm sorry to say, but it could be almost up to $1,000 if you're in the state of California, and you have to furnish all of those HOA documents to your buyer. Could be less, of course.
Sure.
But it's not uncommon to be $600, $700, $800, $900 to provide those documents.
Just to get the documents?
Yes. They usually come from the management companies. And the management companies, it's a business that they manage the associations. It's very lucrative in California.
Sure. I mean, because you can have them online and just push a button from Dropbox or Box.net and say, boom, here they are.
Could be. Right. And by the way, when your buyer gets those, you want to make sure, one of the things also in the contract, it says that the buyer is supposed to have the 12 most recent months of minutes, monthly minutes of the meetings.
Wow.
As a buyer, you want to make sure that you read through those. And most of them are usually very benign. There usually aren't any big obstacles, but I've had situations to where we have found out after we received those minutes, there was actually a lawsuit going on in the complex that the seller was not aware of. So we had to try to resolve the issue and determine what the basis of the lawsuit was before the buyer could even move forward.
And you can also, it's interesting because I never realized that part of it, because I've got a friend of mine who, bought a real nice condo and really hates it. And the reason that she hates it is because she's got a horrible neighbor.
Oh gosh, that's rough.
And a neighbor that is consistently complaining about everything. That would probably be in those minutes. It might have been discovered ahead of time.
Maybe not.
Interesting.
If it's a neighbor complaining, I've never seen any minutes that have a specific name of somebody. It's usually referred to as a homeowner.
Okay. So
but there's a certain amount of privacy that goes along with those.
Sure.
So it's usually a homeowner.
Okay. So as a seller then...
Well, can I back up?
Yeah.
If a seller has a problem neighbor, and if it really is a problem neighbor, if it's an issue, not just a personality conflict, but if there is a problem or a nuisance, nuisances are something that is supposed to be disclosed by a home seller through the property disclosures.
Interesting.
If it's a nuisance,
sure.
So you have to determine.
Yeah, if the reason that you're selling, if you've been out there telling everybody in the world that I got to sell my house because I've got this neighbor that's a pain in the neck, and you don't disclose it, well, you may be open for some potential liability down the road.
Loud music is something that's one of the questions on one of the questionnaires. I mean, it's that kind of thing. If a neighbor has a barking dog, if a neighbor has plays loud music, those are issues they could be considered a nuisance.
Interesting. Okay, so I want to go back because of this contingency question.
Yes.
Because the things that I hear the most are, when I talk to sellers, is they want to know what's the price and what are the contingencies. Right? I mean, they should be knowing the whole contract, But they're always looking at, hey, how much money am I getting?
They're looking at how much money they're getting and how soon am I getting
Right,
it.
exactly.
They don't necessarily know that the contract, like I said in the beginning, until the buyer signs off all of those contingencies, it's weighted in favor of the buyer during the first portion of the contract.
So I want to have you switch your hat then a little bit.
Okay.
On the buyer's side, if the buyer comes in and they've agreed to a 60-day escrow, how do they protect themselves? What if they lose their job? They get hit by a bus or something like that to protect their earnest money. Is there any way?
I don't know of a seller, or I would suggest that my seller extend those contingencies. If you lose your job, I'm sorry to say, you could lose your deposit.
Okay.
I mean, you just could.
And that's important to know,
Yeah,
right? I mean, it doesn't
could.
matter whether, you go back to the same thing. It is what it is, right? I mean, you can try and protect for everything,
And that's
but there is some risk.
You're right. There's always going to be risk.
Sure.
There's going to be risk in not doing something. There's risk in acting.
Right.
When you look at it both ways. That's also another reason that in the very beginning, I want to see how large that buyer's earnest money deposit is. That's important to a seller.
Sure.
Because if a seller is going to take that home off the market for a minimal amount, what's the risk to the buyer? The buyer may walk for a couple $1,000s.
Yeah, they might look at it exactly. They might look at it and say, you know something, I found a better house. My return on investment,
Yes.
my family livelihood
Yes.
is fine. I'll walk away from it. I don't care.
They may be willing to walk.
And that's not the ideal thing, but it is a possibility. And again, that goes back to the same thing that we've talked about from day one. And I preach it on Ron Siegel Radio, maybe overboard, but it's my show, so I can preach overboard. It's get professional guidance. Don't go with the and again, I love Walmart. I used to sell to them, but don't go with the Walmart of real estate. Don't go with the online services. You're talking about your family's castle, and I don't care whether it's a $100,000 condo in Desert Hot Springs or a $10 million house in Newport Beach. It's your family's castle. Get the guidance that you deserve. Get the help that you need. And be sure to set that first radio preset button to come back here every day to join Ron Siegel Radio, where we only speak about items affecting your house and your bank account. Lynda, we didn't get to all the stuff we had planned,
I
but
know.
We'll have to have you back to do it again. Thanks to all of our sponsors. A big thanks to John, who's engineering us today. And, of course, a special thanks to you for spending a little bit of your day with us. That's all for Ron Siegel Radio. Again, if you have any questions or to meet any of our guests, call me anytime, 800-306-1990, 800-306-1990, or ronsiegelradio.com. And remember, make a lot of money so you can help a lot of people and have a lot of fun. Don't forget about our Girl Scout cookie drive. It's the triple play. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time on Ron Siegel Radio.